Hello, welcome to another episode of the Bible in 1 year with the preacher's husband. So, today we're talking about Genesis chapter 46 and 47. And this is where Jacob packs up and he leaves for Egypt. Now, he didn't leave right away because he's got to talk to God first. He's a little, tentative about going. So God says to him, I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you into a great nation there. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also bring you back. Joseph will close your eyes when you die. So that was enough encouragement for Jacob, just to be able to see Joseph again and know that he's going to be there in the end with him. So he does. He packs up his family and he heads to Egypt. And there's a bunch of them. In my version of the Bible, it says all those of Jacob's household who came to Egypt were 70 persons. Now that number apparently did not include Jacob himself and his 4 wives, because they didn't count the women typically when they were wives. They didn't count the wives in the numbers, but so it could be 75. Some versions say 71 because they count Jacob. Some say 75. Some say as much as 80 because of Joseph's wife. And he had 3 boys and 2 girls, I believe, with that wife. So sometimes they count them with it, but they were already in Egypt, so they didn't really travel. So that's neither here nor there. So then he goes, and then he arrives in Egypt. Now, when he gets to Egypt, he sends Judah ahead to let Joseph know that he was on his way. So what does Joseph do? Joseph saddles up them horses and hitches them up to the chariot, more so to speak, and he jumps on his chariot that Pharaoh gave him, and he rides to Goshen to go meet his father. So he gets there, and they wrap their arms around each other like a father and a son would, and they hug. And then Israel says to Joseph, I'm ready to die now because I have seen your face and you are still alive. But you know what? He doesn't die there. He actually lives 17 more years in Goshen, in Egypt. So he gets there, and Pharaoh welcomes them. He welcomes their family there, and then 5 of his brothers Pharaoh welcomed, and then also he welcomes Jacob. And when he gets to Jacob, he goes, now how old are you? And basically Israel or Jacob says, I'm 130 years old. And that was fascinating to Pharaoh because he didn't see people that lived that long. And in fact, there had only been a couple of people that have lived longer than 130 years in the Bible since the flood, and since God had said you ain't going to live but 120 years or 125 years, depending on your version of the Bible. And it was very rare. Only Isaac and Abraham had lived longer than him up to this point. So that was a rare thing. So he's welcomed, and after he welcomes him, guess what? Jacob blesses him. He blessed Pharaoh. And then Pharaoh said to ask him these questions after he blessed him, because he was an old, wise man, and he gave a blessing upon Pharaoh that everything he did would be good. Now, here's what happens. The famine's still going on, okay? And this reminds me more of the Jacob that was the Donald Trump Jacob that we used to talk about. That's rubbed off on Joseph. Joseph has become just very good at business and very good at, I don't know what you want to say, just making everybody happy on both sides of the fence and prospering from it, essentially. And the famine's still going on, and this year the famine is just as bad as the previous one, but now all the people are out of silver. They were charging silver for the grain, but now all of the silver in Egypt belonged to Pharaoh because he'd been selling grain for silver. So the people had nothing else to buy, and they basically said, give us the food, all of our silver's gone. And Joseph's like, look, I can't do that, because if he gave one person a bag of free food and somebody found out, then everybody want a bag of free food, and then everybody all around that's affected by the famine would come, not just out of Egypt but out of other countries. They come flocking to him. And they wouldn't have enough food to feed everybody in other countries and places as well. So there's no way you can give it away for free. That's just not, it's not in the cards. As much as we want to, and as much as it feels good to do so, that wasn't the right thing to do. So he says, I'll tell you what, give us your livestock and we'll give you the food. We'll do a barter system. We'll trade livestock for food. So they do that for a year. And then the next year comes and the people are out of livestock. Pharaoh owns all their livestock there. We don't have anything else to give. All we have is our land and we're just starving to death. So that's when Joseph says, well, okay, here we go. And they offered their land. They said, we'll give you our land. That's all we got left. We'll give you our land for food. So they do. They sell all their land to Pharaoh, all except for the priests. The priests had their own land. And the Pharaoh didn't take that. They were actually given an allowance by Pharaoh, so they didn't have to sell their land off. They didn't really have much else, but they had their food and their allowance from Pharaoh, so they didn't have to sell their land. And then after all this is said and done, guess what? Pharaoh owns everything. He owns all the land. He owns all of the silver. He has all of the livestock. And the people, you would think, would be suffering, but they're not, because he says, here's what's going to happen from here on. It's kind of the beginning of taxes in a way, because he said, basically 1/5 of everything that you make, you're going to bring to us. That way, if famine ever does happen again, we'll always have food stored up. So it kind of turned out pretty well in a way. In a way, it was bad because, taxes, you got to give away what you make, but at least part of it. But it all went to feed them later on when it was all said and done. So Israel settles in Goshen, and there we are. Now tomorrow, we're going to be finishing up Genesis, chapter 48, 49, and 50. And this will be the end of the beginning. I hope this has touched you. If it has, please click that like button, the subscribe button, and of course the little jingle bell so you can be notified the next time I upload a video. And put something in the comment section. If I've skipped over something that you feel is important, type it on in the comment section. Let's talk about it. And I will see you tomorrow.